Táin Garda investigation.
The Speaker of the House of Commons.
I wish to inform the House, as a matter of courtesy, that I am proceeding immediately to advise the President, pursuant to Article 13 of the Constitution, to dissolve the AHERN.
Good evening and welcome. The Taoiseach and the other two coalition leaders have opened their official election campaign, spelling out their record in government at a joint news conference. Earlier, President Robinson signed a warrant formally granting the dissolution of the Dáil in preparation for the general election on the 6th of June.
Not an opportunity was missed this morning in the photo opportunities leading up to the dissolution of the 27th Dáil. First, a birthday card for Tánaiste ROSSA from his party colleagues. Then, in the morning sunshine, the deputies began arriving for the session. The politicians, for once, were all laughing, joking and smiling. At last, the phony war was coming to an end. The Tánaiste Mr. Spring even had time to put his feet up. Inside in the Dáil chamber, the Ceann Comhairle Sean Tracy officiated for the last time. And in the dying moments of the Dáil, the banter continued.
Ceann Comhairle, I think we should all be very happy today. The sun was out this morning and the rainbow will be out in a few weeks. And,
well, I just respond to the Deputy by saying that the rainbow always prevails over the shower.
Then, shortly before midday, Mr. Bruton confirmed the worst-kept secret in Irish politics in recent times.
Ceann Comhairle, I wish to inform the House, as a matter of courtesy, that I am proceeding immediately to advise the President, pursuant to Article 13 of the Constitution, to dissolve the AHERN and to summon the incoming Dáil to meet at 3 p.m. on Thursday, 26th of June, 1997.
Just after midday, Mr. Bruton headed for Orsa. After signing the visitors' book, the final piece of the drama was put in place, as President Robinson signed the decree dissolving the 27th Dáil. Back at Leinster House, perhaps the most choreographed campaign ever in Irish politics finally got underway. The Fine Gael backbenchers and ministers were marshalled together to walk en masse to the Shelbourne Hotel for their joint parliamentary party meetings. But not to be outdone, Mary HARNEY and BERTIE AHERN were called to pose for their moment of togetherness.
Hi, girls. Hi. Hello.
A few minutes later, and on cue to near precise timing, the coalition leaders set off from Leinster House to launch their campaign and hold their first ever joint parliamentary party meeting. The image of Messrs. Bruton, Spring and de Rossa stepping out side by side is the image which the Rainbow election planners want to project. And in this area today, nothing was left to chance.
The Taoiseach told the news conference given by the three coalition leaders that the halving of unemployment levels would be at the centre of their plans for the next 5 years. The Tánaiste identified Northern Ireland as the greatest challenge and said there was now a hope for peace.
They may be behind in the opinion polls, but the coalition leaders expressed themselves optimistic as they began their 3 weeks campaign. They laid heavy emphasis on the fact that they were united in their appeal to voters, the first coalition to seek re-election on a common programme. At a meeting of their three parliamentary parties, they made clear stability in government would be a cornerstone of their campaign.
This partnership government is stable and it actually can deliver on its promises. The alternative would be unstable, and no matter what it promises, it might not endure long enough to deliver them.
This is a partnership that works. I want to say to you, as leader of the Labour Party, that the Labour Party is proud to make our contribution to this partnership.
The cement, which has provided the solidity and durability of this government, is due in no small part to the fact that all three traditions that make up this government are strongly committed to the principle of social solidarity.
The coalition election programme offers 21 broad policy parameters for the 21st century. They include secure and reliable government, a work and enterprise-friendly tax system, stepping up the fight against poverty, accessible health services for all, and a safe and secure society through a continuation of the fight against crime. But with tax policy looming as a major campaign issue, the government was coy about its proposals. Details of a pledge to cut the amount of money taken in tax would be revealed, they said, by the individual parties.
We're not focusing on the tax rates, we're focusing on reducing the tax take and leaving more money in people's pockets.
So, how would that be done?
We're not going to do it exclusively or even mainly by rates. We're going to do it by increasing the tax-free allowances and widening the bands, and by reducing PRSI. And there may be some movement on some rates, but the priority is going to be taking people out of the tax net altogether if their income is very low, and if their income is a middle income, ensuring that they only pay tax at the standard rate and don't pay anything at the top rate.
On Northern Ireland, the Tánaiste spoke of new hope for an IRA ceasefire, but he emphatically ruled out meetings between Sinn Féin and government officials until an end to violence had been reliably signalled.
No Irish government can have contact with Sinn Féin other than in those circumstances. It would not have been the situation in the past, and certainly I think it would be incorrect and wrong for us to do so in the future.
The individual coalition parties will separately publish their own manifestos in the coming week. Fianna Fáil and the Progressive Democrats formally launch their campaigns tomorrow.
And the Fianna Fáil leader, BERTIE AHERN, has said he doesn't foresee any problems with the Progressive Democrats on any issue during the election campaign. The PD leader, HARNEY, said they would work closely with Fianna Fáil, particularly on the north.
The tricolour remained over Leinster House in the afternoon sunshine, despite the dissolution of the Dáil. The Seanad was continuing its work. Those TDs still left in the House were taking away election literature and posters. Others, however, were saying goodbye for the last time, including the outgoing Ceann Comhairle, Sean Tracy. The two main opposition leaders spelt out this afternoon how well they'd work together, particularly on the north.
The Progressive Democrats and government with Fianna Fáil will leave no stone unturned in having the ceasefire restored and in delivering a political settlement to Northern Ireland that will transform that society, and in particular will give nationalists equal legitimacy with unionism. We will play our part in bringing that about, and I have no doubt that working with Fianna Fáil we can deliver in relation to Northern Ireland.
The Fianna Fáil leader did not think it would be a dirty campaign.
I hope not. I think it's going to be a very vigorous campaign, fought up and down the country. And as far as we're concerned, we'll put forward our policies and our candidates to do the very best they can in that. We have a manifesto which will be launched tomorrow that I think will be an exciting manifesto covering the range of major policy issues in this campaign.
Recent by-election winners were confident about the hustings and emotive about the day's events.
Yes, absolutely. There's a tremendous sense of relief here. The waiting period has been very long, and I think the backbenchers on all sides were anxious to see an end to the phony war that's been going on for the last few months.
Glad to be here. It's good to be as a witness to these events, and I found it just very emotional.
And visiting Leinster House, a figure who dominated events in the early part of this Dáil, former Attorney General Harry Wheelahan.
And our political editor, DONAL Kelly, joins us now from outside government buildings. DONAL, on this first day of the campaign, taxation appears to be a key issue. What differences exist between the parties?
Well, we'll have to await the publication of all the tax documents before we know the clear differences that there are between the parties. But certainly today, some differences have already emerged. Now, some weeks ago, the Progressive Democrats published their policies. They're pretty straightforward. They want to cut the top rate of tax to 40% and the bottom rate to 20%, and they want to cut PRSI. Fianna Fáil are due to publish their tax policies tomorrow. Now, they've been kept very secret. They've worked on them for many, many months. They're said to be very comprehensive, and the only thing we do know about them is that they're probably going to suggest that the top rate of tax be cut by 5 points, but as I say, they're much more comprehensive than that. The government, for their part, say they're not going down the route solely of cutting the top tax rates, or indeed the bottom ones. What they want to do, they say, is to widen tax bands, do something about allowances, because they believe that's the way to put more money into the pockets of the lower paid.
Donal, thank you for that. This Dáil was unique in that it witnessed a change in government without an election. Cathy Herbert looks back now at the 27th Dáil.
It's been the most extraordinary Dáil in the history of the state. Its inception heralded the end of the traditional alliances of Irish politics, when Labour turned its back on Fine Gael and went into government with Fianna Fáil. 2 years later, that alliance broke up amid a scandal over a child-abusing priest. And there was another historic moment. Without an election, a new government was formed when Fine Gael and Democratic Left crossed the floor of the House to join Labour on the government benches.
To the back. Thank you.
How does it feel to be called Taoiseach?
It's a bit of a shock. Thank you.
It was a Dáil that saw the declaration of an IRA ceasefire. In December 1995, there were spectacular scenes on both sides of the border as people turned out in their thousands to welcome President Clinton, who had come to lend his personal support to an already faltering process.
The Docklands area of London has been bombed by the IRA in the past.
In 2 months, the peace was shattered by the IRA bombing of Canary Wharf in London. The two communities remained polarised. And 3.5 years after the signing of the Downing Street Declaration, substantive all-party talks in Northern Ireland have yet to get underway. Historic too was the 1995 referendum, which legalised divorce by the narrowest of margins. This government has had its share of political drama. Within months of its formation, Fine Gael ministers Phil Hogan and Hugh Coveney resigned. Embarrassment too for the Labour Party over fundraising events.
It should have gone out on Labour Party no prayer.
Apologies in the Dáil, but no resignations. No resignations either over the delisting of Judge Dominic Lynch from the Special Criminal Court. But the most dramatic fall from grace was Michael Lowry's. Always a controversial minister, he resigned last November when it emerged that Ben Dunn had paid for a £200,000 extension to his home. And the Dunn's payment saga continues. Last month, Ben Dunn, in evidence to the Tribunal of Inquiry, said he'd given over £1 million to the former Taoiseach Charles Haughey. It also emerged that he gave almost £200,000 to the Fine Gael party. On the economic front, it was good news all the way. Low interest rates, unprecedented revenue buoyancy, and a steady fall in the numbers out of work. The murder of Detective Garda Jerry McCabe and of crime reporter Veronica Guerin within weeks of each other last year outraged the country. Stung by the reaction, the government moved quickly to introduce a package of measures to fight drugs and crime, culminating in the approval of restrictions on the right to bail in last November's referendum. But the opposition continued its attack, making crime the battleground on which to fight the general election. Meanwhile, the government ran a highly successful European presidency that won accolades throughout the community. No accolades, though, for the handling of the hepatitis C scandal, which resulted in the infection of over 1,600 people, most of them women. The tribunal report put the blame on the BTSB, while largely exonerating the minister and his predecessor Brendan Howlin. The extent of the political damage remains to be seen. From the beginning, this three-party government boasted it would be cohesive, in that it had succeeded. The parties have stuck together and will now go to the country seeking re-election as a government.
The Garda Commissioner has said the level of policing for the general election will be the same as in the past. Pat Byrne issued the statement after the Garda Representative Association urged its members to take annual leave on the day of the election count. Commissioner Byrne said such views didn't reflect the true position of the quality and commitment of the men and women of the force. And there we take a break. No government has been re-elected since 1969, and no coalition has ever been re-elected. Going into the last election campaign, none of the parties had agreed formal election pacts. This time, the lines appear to be more clearly drawn.
Etó 77, Neil 88. The motion is lost.
The 26th Dáil was dissolved when the PDs pulled out of the coalition led by Albert Reynolds. In the election campaign which followed, the Fine Gael leader John Bruton floated the notion of a rainbow coalition, consisting of his party, Labour and the Progressive Democrats. But as Labour rode higher in the polls, Dick Spring was keeping all his options open. He even suggested at one point that he should be Taoiseach in any coalition arrangement. Labour returned to the Dáil with 33 seats, and the negotiations with the other parties began. In any rainbow deal, Labour would have preferred Democratic Left to the PDs, but Fine Gael had ruled this out. In any case, the numbers didn't add up. The body language between Dick Spring and John Bruton suggested the rainbow was off, and so it proved. Labour and Fianna Fáil went into a government which lasted 2 years, but many in the Labour grassroots were unhappy.
That's why
This time round, the party leaders have made their positions crystal clear going into the campaign.
I will not, in the aftermath of the next election, come before you to recommend any form of coalition with either of the parties that make up the centre-right alternative, the Progressive Democrats or Fianna Fáil.
The combination, rejected as unworkable by Fine Gael in 1992, is now offering itself as a package deal.
In calling the election today, we're asking you, the people, to give this partnership government the opportunity to continue the work we have done successfully over the last 2.5 years.
And the two parties which have fallen out in the past are determined it won't happen during this campaign.
There will be no problems whatever between the Fianna Fáil and Progressive Democrats, I hope, on any issue in this campaign.
Fianna Fáil and the Progressive Democrats can work together. We worked together in the past. BERTIE, AHERN and I are new young leaders.
The latest opinion poll shows 38% of voters would favour the current Rainbow government. 47% would prefer a Fianna Fáil PD coalition, while 15% are undecided or don't support either option. Smaller parties and independents may yet prove significant. In 3 weeks' time, it's the voters who'll decide the numbers. And in the past, it's those numbers which have always dictated the formation of the new government.
Well, if your area looks different tonight, it's probably because election posters have been going up with all due speed during the day. One village, however, has managed to stay poster-free because residents say they want to win the Tidy Towns competition.
Halfway up every lamppost and ESB pole in the country, they're blooming like the flowers of May. Within minutes of today's announcement, the climbing and the hammering had begun. One candidate says he won't go near a lamppost. The residents don't like it. It doesn't look good. He's using private sites and houses.
In people's gardens, yes, if people want them are allowing the people to use their gardens. In fact, I have an offer already of a house down in the Liberties.
Putting up posters can mean climbing up the political ladder. BERTIE AHERN started out as director of lamppost boys at the age of 14. Taking them down is a lot trickier, especially if they belong to another party.
An essential piece of equipment was a long pole with a hook on the top of it, and this could help you remove posters only after the election is over, of course. But I think these things, it's been known to happen just before polling day.
You wouldn't pull down a poster yourself?
Certainly not. Perish the thought from your mind.
The Fine Gael candidate in North Tip has no ladder. His pictures make a greater impact at eye level. But one of the few places in the country still poster-free this evening is Lucan, County Dublin. The locals want to win the Tidy Towns.
I'll give you a very small picture of me, just in case you forget.
Okay, thank you.
We're going very environmental, small-scale literature and smaller posters as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Right, thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye. I'll see you.
And finally, the 27th Dáil may have been dissolved this morning, but at least one lasting memory of its term will remain. A County Longford woman has gathered together the signatures of all 166 deputies and 60 senators to produce a fitting memento of the last anticipated full Dáil session of the 20th century.
Ceann Comhairle, I wish to inform the House, as a matter of courtesy, that I am proceeding immediately.
It's taken 6 months and 250,000 stitches to put together. But as John Bruton rose to his feet to dissolve the Dáil this morning, Chris Connolly was putting the final touches to her own patchwork tribute to the 27th Parliament.
I just came up with the idea of collecting the signatures of members of the Dáil and Seanad. I got the idea at the end of 1996, and I think it was significant to collect their signatures because this is the 75th anniversary this year of the formation of the government in 1922. Indeed, the first June elections were then, as they are coming up again. Also, it's the last Oireachtas to finish out its term of office this century.
The patchwork quilt contains 227 signatures, one more, technically, than it should have. A reminder of a life tragically lost during the present Seanad.
The extra signature is the signature of Senator Liam Naughton, who was tragically killed on the evening the letters were written. He had died by the time the letters and the patches got to everybody else, and his son Dennis kindly sent a copy of his signature later with his own signature.
This evening, Chris handed over her work to the Portiuncula Hospital in Ballinasloe. The sale of the quilt will help raise funds for the provision